Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Gear Talk. We do these every other Thursday at 5. I tell you this every single time, but some people still don't know. They think I do it every Thursday. I do not. I used to a long time ago, but currently right now it's every other Thursday we do it. If you come by and it's not the Thursday, you're probably seeing Final Fantasy abridged streams that I've been doing. But right now, you're here for a Gear Talk, and we're here to talk about the good stuff, the stuff that really makes the world run. So I was thinking to myself, what should we talk about when it comes to this episode? I want to talk more of Sera. And I want to talk about, what makes up most of Sera. We've talked about each area, cities, countries, but we haven't talked about Sera itself when it comes to, a landmass. And I thought, what better than the Serano Ocean? I really love things that involve the ocean or water or, areas of the ocean. A little side story before we actually get into the actual, talking about the ocean and everything for the Serano Ocean, the ocean that takes up the majority of Sera. I used to be, when I was younger and I was in high school, I was actually looking at going into marine biology in order to do, aquatic studies and learn about the ocean. I love the ocean to death. Everything that involves water, I love it. Even the idea of, mythical magics with water magic or elemental magic, Avatar, the waterbenders, anything. I love water. It is, the greatest thing of all. If I had a superpower, it would be aquamancy or hydromancy where it's water control. That's what I would want. I love water that much. So when I was younger, I was going to go into aquatic studies, and towards the end of my junior year to my when I was a senior in high school, we had to do mock interviews to go in to see how we would do with a college interview for a course we wanted to do. So I did it, and the principal I had at the time, she looked at my stuff, and she's just like, you're never going to make it. You might as well just replan your entire college course. If you plan on going to college, you're not going to make this. You have no chance of it. Literally squashed everything I ever wanted right then and there. And I was in radio at the time. I was working at a radio station, and it was the idea of okay, I'm just going to work here as a job, make some money, and go to college. Well, once all that was squashed, I was like, I might as well just go for mass communication so I can do more radio. So I went into mass communications, but I always wanted to do aquatic biology or marine biology in general. So a little message for you kids: if someone says you can't do anything, stick it right up their ass, because you can do anything you dream of. It's corny, but it's true. Yeah, screw people who tell you can't do something. So when it comes to talking about the Serano Ocean, I really love that, because it's it mirrors our oceans a lot, because the Serano Ocean is just one ocean on the planet. It's just one ocean. While in our world, obviously all the oceans are connected, we have it in different areas. We have the Pacific, Atlantic, Arctic, we have those kinds of oceans, oh look, the oceans. They have one. The entire planet, the 60% of water, is just the Serano Ocean. Sera, you have planet Sera, Serano Ocean, that's what you have there. So that's where the name comes from, pretty obvious. But we're just going to talk about it all. It takes up 60% of the planet, like I said, and the creatures inside of it, I am surprised that humanity on Sera did not go extinct a long time ago. Because not only when we covered, some of the areas like the South Islands, or we cover some of the creatures that exist on the world, which there are some crazy creatures on Sera. The fact that there are creatures in the ocean that are named Leviathan, which could just come and eat you in one swallow, exist. And it's just a normal thing. On Earth, we have whales, right? We have whales. Whales do not eat people normally. Killer whales, they're kind of dicks. But we don't normally have a humpback whale that comes up oh, there's someone swimming, I'm going to eat them. That's not a thing. The Leviathans and Gears are no, if there's something to eat, we are going to eat it. And the most bizarre thing of it all is, they're not even native to the Serano Ocean. They are invasive species that come from the Hollow. When they decided to blow that up and link everything into the ocean, guess what? When Jacinto sank, out came the Leviathans. Now they're in the main ocean. So we'll cover some of that too, but it's just nuts, okay? I can't get over that. Humans shouldn't survive on Sera, but they do. So yeah, that's my tirade for the humans. Now, we're going to touch on the different parts of the ocean. Now, not really the different regions, but going up from down. Much like Earth, they have different levels of their ocean when it comes to the light levels, or different areas of the ocean going in a vertical motion. So starting off at the top, they have the light zone. So the light zone is roughly Within like the top of the water down to like I think 600 meters it said it was, or so around that range you have the light zone. So the light zone is where most of the light comes through. Most of your marine biology in our world and Sera is found within this level. Most of this stuff is like you'll see stuff near land towards that area. Normally the middle of the ocean you will never find just creatures just swimming, because the middle of the ocean is just barren and there's nothingness. So most times you don't see creatures that'll just be out in the middle of the ocean. Normally towards the coast or near shore, or normally further out into the ocean where there's like not as steep of a drop, you'll find most of the creatures that reside here. From there you go into the twilight zone. So the twilight zone is 600 to 1,000, around that range. This is where you find more like larger creatures find here, slower moving creatures. Now it's darker here, not a lot of light permeates through into this part, but it's still visible at least. So like for instance, like now and then you'll see like deeper reaching whales go into this area, and you'll have other creatures that like they're bigger ones that'll come out to hunt now and then, but they call this home normally. Not a lot of creatures, but just enough to keep this as like a vibrant area where things do exist. And the final level is the midnight zone. So the midnight zone, there's just no light. The light does not reach far enough down here where there is most creatures that are visibly able to hunt. So like in our world, this is where you find like anglerfish, or you find like the jellyfish that have the very long tentacles that come down, and they're like the extremely long ones that are basically made to like catch stuff as they go by. Down here, it's also very cold. The lower down you go in the oceans, the colder it gets. So the lower down you go also, you have creatures that are moving extremely slow. Like they move at like a snail's pace, because you have to conserve as much energy as you can down here. Even if you were to go hunting and you missed a hunt you were going for, that is life and death right there. There's a strong chance you will die if you miss one meal, because of the fact that there's barely anything down here. Now and then, like I said, when it comes to like the twilight area, yes, the whales can reach this level going down in our world, but they don't stay down there. Not a lot of things stay down in this area. And there is one more area, but it's still in the midnight zone, but we will talk about it. We're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about for this one, actually, but separately from the 3 levels. The Abyssal Trench. Now, the Abyssal Trench, you have midnight. This goes deeper in. It is still midnight because light is still not permeating. This is the deepest part of the ocean on Sera. When it comes to the actual deepest part of the entire planet, if you count the hollows, I want to say this is also deeper because of the fact that the Locust cannot go under the Abyssal Trench. There's nothing that can go under it. Actually, speaking about that, let's just jump in and talk everything involving the Abyssal Trench that plays a role in the world of gears, because there are quite a few things. When it comes to the Serano Ocean, we have a lot of things that happen, but down deep where the Locust try to go through and invade the top side, the Abyssal Trench plays a very big role in a lot of that. The Abyssal Trench is actually located towards the South Islands. Now, we have never been given an actual full-on map of what Sera looks like for a geological standpoint, or geography, geological, any of that really. We haven't gotten none of it. We only know for a fact that the islands are off and away from where Tyrus would be, so you can kind of gauge that, kind of like for us how we have it. You could see it as like, here we have like, for North America, for instance, we have like America, Canada, Mexico, and then off of there on the sides you have like Samoa over here, and then further over you have Hawaii. So I would imagine the South Islands would probably be roughly like that, and the Abyssal Trench runs between Tyrus and between the Southern Islands, so you can probably guess that there's a wee bit of a cutoff when it comes to the land. It looks like a giant slice happens, and that, however, plays a very major role in keeping the South Islands safe. When everything was normally going on in the world before the Locust, and let's say the 6 weeks of peace, the Abyssal Trench doesn't really play a large role in anything, really, because you can still take boats across the ocean. It doesn't affect anything there. Like I said, not many things live down there, or at least on Sera, we don't know. For all I know, the Kraken is living down there. The Seran version of the Kraken lives in the Abyssal Trench. But it never played a role until E-Day occurred and the Locust began to be a thing and they started invading topside. A lot of land masses were all hit at once. Some of the only areas that were not affected, period, were the South Islands. Most of the South Islands. Some of the South Islands were still affected because it's not like the islands are all just like within one little cluster. It's a main area of like, here's the area of the Serano Ocean where the islands are. These are the South Islands. So not everything is just behind the trench. Like, for instance, there are some islands that are in front of the trench where the Locust did make their way onto. And later on we learn, especially from, like, Judgment, that's 6 weeks after E-Day, though they're able to make boats, okay? So if the Locust really wanted, they could make boats and they could go across. It's just that they never saw the South Islands because they had an idea of how the human civilizations were set up. And they did see, like, the South Islands did not hold, like, a major key area they had to get to. If that was the case in a what-if scenario, imagine them just, like, bringing hordes of ships to try and cross over into the South Islands. That's an interesting idea to see how, like, naval warfare with the Locust would be. I'd imagine they would not be that good. Even in Judgment, their ships were not put together to be, like, uber powerful ships that could just withstand anything. No, it's not like that. So the South Islands were mainly okay. Now, when everything happened and a lot of communications were cut off, electricity, power, and everything was like kaputski throughout the planet, they didn't know a lot of what was going on over on like the mainland. So over on the South Islands, they were kind of like trying to figure out what was going on. When they did figure out what was going on, because again, people were able to make it back and forth now and then, they were able to decide, like, okay, some of them went back to the mainland to fight with the rest of the COG, and then some of them just bunkered down. As we'll see with Vectis, we're going to touch on that one in a few moments. They mostly just decided to just, like, we're going to stay here, hunker down, and we're just going to wait for things to blow over or get word on what's going on. Little spoiler for you, they never got a lot of word what was going on. As we learned with Vectis, they didn't even know what was really happening on the mainland at all. And then when you fast forward from there and you go over to when the COG actually sinks everything from Jacinto, and they basically create like a crater where Jacinto was and flood everything, and it affects the entire planet because, again, you let Leviathans out into the world. They have to decide where they're going to live next. They first go over to Port Farrell, but then decide, hey, we're actually going to make our way to Vectis. Long story, basically. Very cold there. Locust survivors. Let's go where the Abyssal Trench cuts things off. So they go to Vectis. They had no clue about what was going on in the world. They didn't even know Jacinto was sunk. They didn't know anything. This was like civilization that was never really touched by E-Day or the Locust War in general, and now we brought everything to their doorstep, and that became like the new temporary capital of the COG at the time. And it was basically decided again because the Abyssal Trench, nothing can make its way across, so we don't have to worry about Locust. We're just going to go, make our way here, rebuild, and we're going to figure out what we're going to do next and figure out what Locust survivors have to be cleaned up. Because at the time, they didn't know about Mirror or any of that, so they make their way over there. One important thing to know about is that even though the Locust can't make it over there by tunneling or anything like that, there is one enemy that they didn't even think about, they didn't really come to their mind, because at the time it was a very new enemy for humans. That is lambency. So the lambent were able to actually take care of that problem because of the fact that the lambent is a parasitic organism, so it is able to kind of just bleed its way into that area of the South Islands while the locust cannot physically get over there. Lambency can. So lambency took over a lot of like the wildlife in the ocean. So you had these larger fish that would, the fishing, because Vectis was a fishing village, the fishermen would go out and catch and bring back, and now and then some of those fish were lambent, so they would have the tendency of exploding. Even the creatures in the Serano Ocean are affected by lambency. Everything can be affected organically by lambency, so the ocean was not a safe place. With lambency making its way over, that did start to affect the life over in Vectis, where you had creatures coming out of the Serano Ocean in order to attack, even at one point infecting and bringing forward the Leviathans. Leviathans ended up getting infected with lambency, and you had a lambent Leviathans, as we've seen what they look like in 3, come up to Vectis and start attacking. So the ocean itself became like a not safe area for the majority of it, because you never knew when like a stock would appear or leviathans were swimming by that were lambent. You did not know. Because one thing to know about the ocean in general, you can never know for certain what's going to happen or where things are. The ocean is so vast and massive. For instance, like when people go to like track sharks on their patterns for travel or their mating habits, you see that they go like very far around the world in order to travel. So imagine creatures, random creatures could be just lambent and they're swimming through. You have no clue where they're going to be. Like we see in 3, no one knows when the stalks are just going to come up and appear. You have no idea. So the ocean became not safe for anyone either, but you really don't have a lot of choice. That's why the Sovereign was on there. Where else are you going to really go? So the ocean, like the last place that a lot of people thought was going to be safe from like the Locust, because again, the Locusts were never water adept or anything, that was taken away, and that became like also we have to figure out a better idea. It turns out Anvil Gate Hoffman was thinking of was actually the best choice. And that pretty much like took care of everything that involved Vectis and the Serano Ocean involved with it. So again, the trench pretty much kept everyone safe. And the ocean, I love the ocean. One more thing we can really talk about, I guess, is Sanctuary. The idea of Sanctuary being built was originally decided because Sanctuary was also on the side of the trench the Locust couldn't get to. So the idea was if Azura, which was on the side they could get to, was taken out, they still had a backup to the backup plan with Sanctuary, but it was never finished, so it just never occurred. And we get to see that over in Hivebuster, so it was fun. So that's really going to do it. Not really much else I can really talk about when it comes to the Serano Ocean. I just really wanted to talk about it. I just thought, I've had that in my backlog of videos, and I love the ocean. I want to talk about the ocean. So let's talk about the ocean. So I just really like water. So we talked about the Serano Ocean. So there you go. You never really think about it that much because in Gears, it focuses a lot on the Earth itself, like the actual physical, what you're standing on Earth. With the tunneling that happens with the Locust, for instance. They live in the hollow, under the Earth. So, like, in 3, we kind of got a little bit of the idea of how air works with how they travel through the air. They use, like, the blimps, basically, and the barges. But you never think about water. And we got a little in Judgment when they actually took the ships out, and you can see they can make ships, but the Locusts have never been adept at water. So, I always thought to myself, like, the Serano Ocean, the ocean of the world, we never really touch on it a lot. We touch on, like, ship captains and everything, with Michelson. We touch on, like, water ops, but we never touch on, like, okay, here's a battle strategy to fight the Locusts. Like, maybe before Lambent, like, maybe there's a group of survivors or, like, Stranded that, because we see there's a fleet on the Serano Ocean of Stranded. Maybe they're just chilling out and they actually had the right idea. It seemed like they had a good idea of having a huge, like, just fleet that went throughout the ocean. So maybe they had the right idea before Lambency was a thing. It's like, we're just going to fight all of the Locusts from the water because we're able to do that. Humans have navies. We can do that. But when it comes to the idea of the Locust, they don't really have any of that. So maybe the Stranded had it right all along. Maybe that was the answer. So I want to thank everyone for watching. I want to thank everyone for making things possible. Thank the patrons for making things possible. And yeah, just a fun little video. Just like, yeah, talking about the ocean. That kind of stuff. So thank you all. I love you to death. I'll see you in the next one or any videos coming up from here. As always, reminder, as of late, we do have a Discord now. Link in the description if y'all want to come and say hello. If you want to have good times. See you guys in the next one. Later.